I have the pleasure and the honor now of introducing my business partner, Jeffrey Hazlett, and he's going to take us through that conversation. For those of you who don't know Jeffrey or haven't heard the full bio of Jeffrey, he is the celebrity CMO who was the former CMO and leader at Eastman Kodak. He had over $17 billion in budget when he was there. He's bought and sold over 250 businesses. He's working on his 5th book right now, but The Hero Factor was the most recent one that he published. And I think, Jeff, connecting into how we look at hero leadership, what it means in terms of real impact and driving results for not only our teams and our business, but also all the communities we serve and so on. I think this is just such an important issue. I'm so thrilled that you're going to take this over and lead us through how we now get to that implementation piece, what we can learn from it. And any questions, please let me know. We're going to have a great discussion after this, and we'll have more instruction in terms of how we're going to do that. But Jeffrey, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Tricia. I appreciate you. For those of you who don't know, Tricia is a former CMO of a $3 billion ad holding company, and we were so lucky to be able to have her join us as our partner and also a leader in the C-suite. And I want to do a big shout out to Nelson and certainly to the panel that preceded us. I was taking notes, making notes, and then I actually was during the middle of it. You gave me such great information. I was able to send off to 2 different CEOs I know to say, hey, did you know this? And that's always the great mark of a good program. And we're so glad to be able to partner with NextGen Benefits on being able to do not only just this program, but so many other programs that we're doing in order to educate and create a trusted environment, which is what the C-Suite Network is all about. It's my pleasure to be able to talk a little bit more today as we frame this entire discussion and to have these CEOs join me. The price of healthcare has gone up every single year since 1960. Now, that's a significant year because that was the year that I was born. And so I don't think that's the reason for the growth in all of the increases, but certainly, if we look at it across the board, that's a long period of time that we've seen healthcare go up every single year of my life. That's significant. And in 2018, private healthcare insurance spending grew by 5.8% to slightly over $1.2 billion, or 34% of the total national health expenditure. So here's what the industry doesn't tell you, and it's what Nelson talked about before, the big lie. We can control rising costs of healthcare. And I'm listening to, to the great experts before, listening to Nelson, listening to Nurse Deb, listening to CEOs that have done it. We know that, this is healthcare's biggest lie. As employers, our second or third largest P&L expense is healthcare, and it doesn't need to be. And that keeps adding up for us every single year. And with what we're seeing right now with coronavirus, you would think that would actually go down because no one can access healthcare at this point, but we're actually being told it's going to go up even more. So how can we control healthcare spend while still provide Americans with the services they need, with our employees the services they need? Because as CEOs, as leaders of our business, we have a duty of care. So how do we tackle or take on the insurance giants in the lobby for individuals? Well, that's what we're going to discuss right now. And we've got a great panel of experts. So with me today is Azam Mirza, who is the co-founder of Akobai. And I hope I got at least his company name right. All right. And he'll correct me certainly when we get together. And Jim Eickhoff, the CEO of Creative Dining Services. So I ask you join with me online here right now, gentlemen, so that we can at least take on a couple of these key questions. And my first question is, national health spending is projected to grow at an average annual rate of 5.4% between 2019 and up to 2028, and to reach 6.2 trillion by 2028. So what drove you to start thinking about making a change and getting more involved with how your healthcare spend is managed? Can I ask either one of you to take that first? Let's see, can we turn them on? I want to make sure
we can go. I got it. I think I'm ready to go here.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. I think what really got us thinking about this was the fact that our premiums kept going up and up and up, coupled with the statistics that you shared with us. And this was just a very sinking, helpless feeling as we were trying to figure out how do we manage our costs.
Yeah.
As we alluded to with the earlier panelists, the problem was none of our C-suite folks had any clue what to do. And so we just said we have to do something. And so we did the dance with the multiple providers. And that was even more painful due to the fact that premiums just kept rising over and over and over again. And I think the tripping point for creative dining was when I was on vacation. Our fiscal year begins, our benefit year begins in August, and I was on vacation, and we had bids in from the big players a day before it was due, and I was on the beach, and I was trying to negotiate and work with premium issues, and it just drove me absolutely insane. And so that's really what the tipping point was. And then luckily bumped into our friend and colleague and business partner, Mike Hill at Coldbrook, and he brought me to the altar and got me converted.
Yeah. Azam, how about you? And you're on mute, so if you can unmute yourself, that'd be great. Or we'll have them unmute you. And maybe the teams like put a big mute on you. We want to make sure we unmute you. Still have you muted for a second. There we go. You're clear now.
Can you?
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So number one, first of all, the business's name is Acorbi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think that was much easier than my last name. So for a long time, the healthcare cost kept going up, and just sitting there and accepting the fact that well, we can't do anything about it. We have to live with it. That was not sitting well with me, and I did not like that.
Yeah.
So, and then most of our clients in service business, clients are putting pressure to decrease our prices and whole 9 yards. So there is so much we can squeeze, and that's when I sat with my C-suite at the time and said, "We've got to do something. We just can't sit here. This is one line item that you can always say, no, we can't do anything and just accept it. There has to be a way." And that's when Dan came into picture. So when Dan came in, and our first thing was, we need to find a way to reduce this cost. I'm not going to accept that every year. And I think as Jim was saying, we were just shifting from one career to another career to hoping to get something cheaper. And that's a big painful thing to do. Instead of having a strategy, that was a very tactical thing we were doing. And that's when we sat down and say, let's come with alternate funding, different methods to handle this problem. And there has to be some way out. So he put a 5-year strategy, and that's what we are on. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I think it's interesting. Both of you guys are saying something that I want to make sure we pull out. And that is, we were doing the dance the same way. You know, we have all of these suppliers who are coming to us, squeezing us and squeezing us and squeezing us, and we keep finding a way to do it. We keep yelling about healthcare costs, but we keep getting the same answer. It's going to go up. It's got to go up. It's inevitable. And yet, and by the way, as CEOs and leaders of our business, we took this for a long time until finally, as you said, Jim, I love that, we were doing the same old dance. And what we did was we were switching from healthcare provider to healthcare provider. Well, that's not the answer, right? Because that's traditionally what we see. But what both of you found, and I thought was unique when you said Michael and you said Dan, is you found a guide, right? Much like if I go hunting, I'm a hunter, you found a hunting guide, in this case, a guide who could take you and walk you through and take you right to where the deer is going to show up, or the pheasants are going to show up, or where the fish are, you know, like a fishing guide, and it'd be able to do it. And I thought that was kind of unique. So how can we as employers control the high cost? Is this what we have to do, is find this trusted individual, or we have to have a mindset change? What is it? Jim, you can go. Let Jim go, and then we'll go back to Azam, and then I'll switch it around next time.
Yeah, I think the thing that is most relevant is finding the right guide. There were educational sessions that Mike set up, but I think the key thing for us was making it a business priority. Just like any of the lines on our P&L, I actually made a shift to put in charge of the process with the advisory capacity, but our CFO was now put in charge of our benefit plan.
Yeah.
And to look at it from a financial perspective, looking at it like any other line item, with the advice of our director of people services, who was the one that was looking at the compassion, the caring side of it. But I was looking at it from the millions going out with no control. And in our industry, we are in the service industry, so our average wage is probably around $13.50 to $14.50 an hour. So we just couldn't afford to do that. So when we were looking for that compassion side that would not only help enable us to say, hey, we need healthcare, but we need healthcare that's going to help people that are really living check to check in many options. And so we needed to have a plan. And in our demographic market, we don't have the healthiest group of employees either. Sad scenario, but it's just a situation where we needed to have a great plan that covered benefits for their kids, for their spouses, significant others. And Mike really took that and listened hard. The advice would be for me is find an advisor who isn't going to tell you and talk to you and, tell you this is the way to do it. You need an advisor who's going to create discovery questions to find out what are you about as a company and what is it you want to offer. Then that program can be guided and shaped.
Azam, how about for you?
Perfect. I think Jim answered everything that I was going to say. So following up after him is like just a ditto Jim. The first thing was, as you said, HR did not have an accountability towards the bottom line and having them do the shopping. They were looking for what needs to be done to take care of the team members. They were not looking at what needs to be done to make sure the P&L is healthy. Yeah. So moving that out from them to our CFO and COO being in charge. And since their compensation is also tied into many of the financial things that happen around the company, the way they looked at it was much different. And that is when they said, hey, HR, you are with us to tell us what the team members want. Let us go and find out how we can bring it to them and how it is healthy for the business. And that was a big change. The other part that I really liked to what we went to was transparency. You have to understand that. Because with the big box insurance plans, it is one of those things I used to joke with my C-suite saying, guys, at the end of the year, we know that they're going to come back with new rates. We have no idea what claims have been filed, with who and what. Okay, so let's start the praying process. And if the rates come back not that high, God is listening to us. And that's the only way you can have faith in God, that there is somebody who's listening to you, because the claims, the premium didn't go up by 40%. It just went up by 20%. Okay. And that is what I did not like. I mean, how can you run a shop? How can you run a successful business that one big line item on your P&L is a mystery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think that's a very unique thing. First, I think it has to have first the transparency in the C-suite that we're going to make a change, and we don't accept going up and going up and going up as the norm going forward. And then I think both of you, and I've seen this C-suite to C-suite, when you move it from HR decision into a more strategic decision, not to say that HR isn't a strategic decision, but by and large, HR doesn't have the same seat at the table that your CFO does, all right? And that is part of your executive team. So I applaud you both for making that decision. And the first, to make it yourself, because I think that it has to be held there first. I think as a CEO, you got to say, nope, this is my condition of satisfaction. Instead of before, quite frankly, all of us, myself included, we ignored it. We just accepted it as a rule of business. And now we're starting to say, just like we're going through it with COVID, the rules that we had before aren't the same rules going forward. And this is one of those kinds of like really breakthroughs for us. And Azam, I think also, and I've learned this a great deal through Nelson's group, is the transparency of understanding, and talking about, well, which doctor are you going to go see? What do you mean you're doing that? No. I'm going to help you get through this, and we're going to do this. I have a duty of care for you, okay? And I'm helping to pay for it, so therefore, I get to have a little say in it. So we're going to talk about those things. So I think that's great. A company's healthcare investment is a capital allocation strategy, require supervision by all the executives with, certainly P&L responsibility. So do you agree with this now? I mean, do you now make that part of your strategic discussion in the C-suite every week or every month that you get together?
Yes, we do. First, one thing I need to tell you is before I go there, the broker that you choose has to be a partner. I think initially Nelson or somebody was mentioning, I mean, you can't have a wolf guard the hen house. So when you believe that person is your partner and their vested interest is to make you save money and always looking out for you, that is where a healthy relationship comes in. I mean, it's been 5 years or so with Dan, or more than that. We never go out shopping for another broker because we know every time he's going to come and number of touch points he's going to do, it's going to be something to save more money or find a better process. So when you have that much faith and you're continuously seeing in savings, month after month, year after year, you realize this is the right person I found. So when he came and approached us with different strategies to go about and said, this is a long-term plan, this is not overnight, things are going to change. So went from a fully funded to level funded, now unbundling every package. This is where it allowed the whole CFO, CEO, everybody to sit down and say, this line item is now have total transparency. We control it. We know when something big is coming down, what needs to be done. And that was a change in how we look at the health plans and healthcare for our team members. We cater to a lot of Silicon Valley companies. So all my team members are working in Silicon Valley, majority I should say. Dan, how many? About 150 to 180 in California. These people working at the Apples and the Googles of the world, they are seeing the other team members how they're being taken care of. So this big companies turn around and ask us, all the your team members who are coming to our office, they better have health plans as good as ours. So now there's an added pressure, okay, to do it. So unless you don't have a broker with you who's going to go step by step and say, yes, I can match this, we will not have a big hit on the bottom line, and the quality of care is going to be as good as them. That makes a big difference. It does. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we definitely have monthly meetings specifically on this topic, not just part of a meeting, but a meeting, which is critical. I'm not a real micromanager at this point, but I think the initial, the meetings that Mike and the team gathered together reviewing the transparency is just utterly amazing. You know where your costs are. I think the other part that when we develop this relationship, and that's why we talked about a true partnership, we've got a unique setup. I don't know how the others are set up, but we have a kind of risk-reward arrangement with Mike Hill and his team, where we incent him to look out for interest. If we beat the savings goals, he gets to share in that profit. And at the same time, if he's projecting X in savings and we miss that, we have a little bit of a risk factor with that as well. So to me, that's true partnership. It's not like, hey, here's your, you know, it's kind of like a consultant that can come on in and give you this great big thick document. Here it is. Thank you very much for $50,000 consulting fee. See you at the end of the year and see how you're doing. And that's exactly how the big box players work. It's, you don't hear a peep from anything until it's time for renewal. And there's this, like I said, this dance of game playing. And we were consistently in the high teens year over year for increased premiums. And it just didn't work. But it is a priority for us as a C-suite to take a look at that and then help redeploy some of those dollars into reinvesting back into our people.
So I'm curious to know, you know, here you are CEOs, and I learned this when I was at Kodak. You know, we had 185,000 employees managing about $187 billion budget. And Trish mentioned my marketing budget was like 17 billion. But even when you're an officer at that level, there's a lot of captains of no. I call them captains of no, right? That get in your way, obstructionists, you know. So what was the biggest obstacle you had to move to reclaim control of your healthcare spending? And did you also have opposition in changing it? So I'd kind of like to know that too, because everybody thinks, well, the CEO's got all this power, boom, and you wave the wand and everything gets put into place. And we know that's not the case. So what was the biggest obstacle that you had to move to reclaim control? And then did you have these captains of no? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. So I hope my HR is not on this call right now. So it came from them first. The first thing is the noise this is going to create. People need to learn the new way. What's going to happen? So many lives. How can we do it? It's impossible. Let's think 2 years down the road. Why now? Okay. And those are the people that you have to sit. Because as I said, they have no financial or no accountability on the bottom line. To them, something is going on. It's not broken. Why not? We have mastered the process. Why change it? So that's when we sat down and said, this is the reason. This is the reason we're going to go this. At the end, the team members or the employees are going to get better benefits while we are saving money. Think about it. They're going to be initial white noise. They're going to be a lot of noise. How are you going to manage that noise? So let's put a process. And in that process, Dan was with us saying, this is how we're going to communicate. We can over-communicate, okay? Smaller things being added, making a big deal about, hey, guys, we now have free access to telehealth, okay? Use it. Why aren't you using it? Guys, are you so happy paying so much to go to this doctor, as you're saying, talking about getting an MRI done or an X-ray done? Have you thought about across the street, before going there, they can tell you where you can save money? Oh, by the way, we are also changing the plan. You get better service. The process is a little different. Let's do sessions or town hall meetings about how we're going to go about it. So we broke down, I mean, as they say, even if to eat an elephant, you have to take a bite at a time. So we had to plan how, when, and what needs to be done. And it was a process. And it didn't happen overnight. Each change took a year or two to happen. So in the last 5 years, we have come to a place where we are very happy, but as Dan would say, there are a few more things that we need to implement, but they're coming through. It was a whole process and the timing was designed. When to introduce what. That's how we did.
How about Jim?
I think for us, this may be something that, since we're people, I think one of the biggest issues we faced initially is we had worked with a broker historically for over 25 years. We had a long time, very good, very caring, compassionate person that brokered us with the big players. Very ingrained in our sponsorships of our events and doing some different fun things. So it really is part of the creative dining family. And so that became a real emotional challenge. So, I mean, you can't discount that when you've worked with somebody for so many years. 5 years ago, I stepped into the role that was a founder-run company. So I'm the first non-founder as a CEO.
Oh, big change.
Yeah. So we were challenged with a relatively conservative board who really didn't want change. They were kind of comfortable. We like tradition. Why would we change? Why would we do that? So sometimes it's not just your employees, but it's your shareholders, and we're privately held. So, they have a little bit more say in the direction of the organization. And I think the other area was just the change element that we did talk about the leadership, shifting the paradigm of becoming a little bit more financially driven from the CFO line item side of it. Then, well, this is my territory in our human resources department. You guys stay away and we'll come up with our recommendation to you. So those are the three main factors that we really had to deal with. But, with the right attitude and the right, as Azim was sharing with us, just the high idea of how we pull it all together, people still win it over. And I just do want to say, we quit the Bukas cold turkey. We went from a big box player, 4 of them in 5 years, to this is our first full year into it, cold turkey. We have no connections to anything. We didn't transition over time. That's part of my personality. But you talk about a wholesale change, from how we did business. So we had to make sure people were comfortable with not just checking the box and moving forward with the way it used to be.
What was the biggest surprise that each of you had in this process? What was the thing that you going into it, you expected this, but whoa, this came from right over here and was a surprise, either positive or negatively?
I think our biggest surprise was that we actually could do what our partners said we could do. I mean, you get skeptical. You say, oh, come on, this is good to be true. And, when we, for example, working with, Nurse Deb and the AIM team, I mean, really you can pick up the phone and someone answers it and gives you good direction and coaching as an employee on the plan. And it gives you choice, guides you as we have guided choice strategies, the best decision, and it works. That to me just blew my mind away that, yeah, it was nerve wracking to maybe do those first couple calls. But when our partners, at Cisco, who's our TPA, they our bills are fully transparent. We ask a question and bang, you get an answer quickly. Not, sorry, we can't share that information with you. So those kind of things were just the thing that we were just, I want to say, shocked with, even though we were hoping that's the way it was, but that's always proof in the pudding, and the pudding was pretty tasty.
Azam, how about for you? What was the biggest surprise, either positive or negative?
The biggest surprise, no, it's just been a very positive experience. The biggest surprise, I should say, the first win that we saw was with pharmacy, okay? Specialized medicine and others. You just go there, you're paying a big bill. Then one day getting a call saying, hey, we need to contact the team members and tell them that we can directly source from the manufacturer and they might not need to pay much. And that was like, wow, can that be done? I mean, recently, personal experience, my mother goes to a rheumatologist and they're going to inject and they ask for $1,000. I called down and said, hey, is that true? You pay $1,000 for the injection? And it's like, no, I can get it straight from the manufacturer. On that insurance, you have to pay $0. But this adamant doctor is saying, nope, if you come to me, you have to buy from my pharmacy and pay $1,000. So that transparency, looking at going, is this how they're making money? Really? When I have an option of the same medicine from the manufacturer for $0 copay, and here you're forced to go through them, and they are saying, now you have to meet such a deductible, pay $1,000 to us. So that kind of openness and transparency going, where there is more to have in this whole program. There is a lot more that can be done. So, and that is what I am loving about it, is every year certain cases come presented to me saying, this is what we did to save you. And it becomes clearer and clearer why my decision so many years ago was the right decision.
So it sounds as though both of you have also had positive experiences from your employees. There's been no kind of riot or stoppage of work or any of the bad things. I'm sure there was some, as with all change, just Jim, like you mentioned in terms of, you know, talking to your shareholders, your board, like, whoa, wait a second, why are we doing that? You know, John down the road's been a great supplier for us for 25, we go to church together and this, and I'm sure all that stuff came through. And then of course, everybody had their favorite doctor, everybody's got their favorite way of doing it, favorite clinic. Let me ask you a question about this because we're running out of time, but I want to make sure that we get this, and I know we want to go into questions. Look, in the end, for all of us, we have a fiduciary responsibility. What has been, or what do you anticipate being, the impact of what I guess I would refer to it, and Nelson, please allow me to this privilege of saying the next gen approach to healthcare on your company's finances. And so what's it been in terms of EBITDA or cash flow? What is it really, or what do you anticipate it to be? I'd be open to understanding that. Jim, how about you first? Or
yeah.
Go ahead, Azam. Go ahead. No,
Azam, go ahead.
Okay. So number one, there has been a positive impact on the EBITDA, but I just want to make clear, I think Dan had mentioned earlier, now the CEO can go and buy a yacht from the savings. No, it doesn't work like that, Dan. Huh? What do you want me to call the yacht?
You could call it the USS Healthcare. You know, you could do that. Or next gen. We could call it next gen. Yeah.
No, we call it the next gen. First of all, going from the unknown to the known of how much I'm going to spend, budgeting that out. So in a very competitive world, sometimes with our RFPs or services, you have to take that into consideration. How much is your overhead cost for each employee? And that's how you can price your service. We are in language business in a competitive world where clients are coming saying, hey, if you need to win, we need to come back and reduce the prices. But if my cost of an employee keeps going up, then I'm starting to run a business on razor-thin margins, which is unhealthy. Anything goes wrong, I'm out. So now when I know I'm controlling the cost, and from seeing that so many years, we have got a better care and no prices have gone up, okay? Our cost per employee is same as what I was paying a few years ago. Now I exactly know how I'm going to price and what my bottom line is going to look on each project, each statement of work. And that is that type of clarity. Is sometimes you're going in an RFP, or sometimes you're signing up work, which is 3 years down. So you have already priced everything else 3 years down how it's going to be. And if tomorrow healthcare is going to go up by 25%, there goes my profit margin on a project. You cannot run a project or a company like that. So this kind of transparency, to the limit, one small example I'm going to give before we move on. I know we are running down time. Dan's team on a weekly basis monitors claims. So we know that there are no surprises. Got a call, my CFO, on a weekly, we do a weekly C-suite call, and he said, hey, there's a claim in there for $125,000 for one of our team members. That's a big one because that's going to blow off some of what we were planning this year. That's when Dan brought it to our attention. Then he goes ahead and starts researching what procedure process was done at which place to realize actually it should have been coded to $2,000 thing. But the provider was trying to push for it because even though he had negotiated rates. So immediately going back and taking care of it. If not, if it was a previous big box insurance, the claim would have been paid something, and my rates following year, if 5 of those claims go through, which should have been $10,000 5 together, it would have been $500,000. Now imagine what my things are going to be. So there are many examples of that I know exactly what is happening, from pharmaceuticals to claim management to all this transparency. That comes back to an actual number on P&L. That makes me decide how I'm budgeting out projects, how am I budgeting out my team members, my profitability, my answerable to my board to say, hey, this is how the company is going to perform this quarter. And that's what means to me.
Yeah, I like the thought of that, and let me just drive that point home again. You know, so many times we just look at what we can say. What can we say? What can we say, right? Which goes to the bottom line, but I love the way you think about the total cost of delivery. So when you put that cost in the total cost of delivery, it makes you more competitive. And that's a very smart way of looking at it. Jim, how about for you? What do you think is your EBITDA or your free cash flow, or how do you view that?
Well, I know that like I said, this is our first year, and we started in September of 2019, and we've already infused over $500,000 into our cash flow line, just falling to the bottom line. And that's after doing a couple things. With the COVID, we established a benefit relief fund to cover employees who were furloughed for their employee portion of their premium. And that we spent about $200,000 on that. And we also used, it's called the benefits app, which there's a cost to that, but we didn't pass that cost on to the employee. We kept that as a creative dining expense line item. So much like you just heard previously, we're putting the money back into enhanced experience to our employees, and at the same time, our customers saving, because the way our billing works, we have a management fee plus cost. So we bill a management fee plus our direct costs. And so when we have seen an deceleration of premiums, our goal is to get to zero. That year over year, we will not have to raise in premiums based upon the performance of our portfolio. And we got a challenge. We've got close to 600 people in the plan representing 13 states. So we have 2,000 employees all in. But we're managing this in a way to keep costs, and again, because of the way our plans are set up, it's working very successfully. And we do have board members who are saying, now we appreciate that, and when we didn't go into it as a purely motive to save money and have a bottom line profit, so we have our private company wealth go up. It's a side benefit from that, but this allowed us to do a lot more things with how we want to spend our money to benefit in this very difficult recruiting market out there for employees. So it isn't always just with how much you earn $1 an hour, how much can we give you that's the whole employee experience, and this is part of that strategy.
Well, and that's a unique point, Jim. I think most C-suite executives that I see, we always think not so much about the bottom line. It's always important for us, but what I see is, and I see this especially in hero businesses, in our C-suite network, we've got a special group of CEOs that just focuses on, putting people above profit. I think most CEOs do that. I think most executive teams do that. We all feel we have a duty of care. I heard that strong from both of you. We hadn't prepped. We hadn't talked before this. Didn't ask you what we were going to ask. This was a way for us to be able to get this raw. And both of you exhibited what I call that duty of care. And I think that's very special, because I think that's what most employers who are providing some health care benefits or benefits of any kind, that's the first thing they do. For all of you that are listening and watching, before I turn it back over to Trish in just about another minute, I want to be able to say to you right now, what are you waiting on? And I wrote myself a note, and I'm a commentator. I'm a business person, but I'm also a commentator. Right now, when we're seeing what we're seeing with COVID and everything else that's going on, we have a new way of working. There's a new work order or order of work for us in the future. And with unemployment being what it is, you're going to have to entice people to come and work for you to get the very best, and to have systems and duty of care in place is important. Right now, in my opinion, days are weeks, weeks are months, months are now year. So whatever you can do in the next month will affect you for the next year very quickly. And so I encourage you to take a look at time in that manner. And without question, both of these gentlemen said, find a guide. And by finding that guide and finding a benefit, a person who can lead you with benefits, a very smart way of doing it. So I love this new model, Nelson. I turn it back over to you, turn it back over to Tricia, and we'll open it up for some more questions. But thank you, gentlemen, very much for your honesty, your candor, and transparency. And then thank Nelson and NextGen Benefits for us to be able to bring this forum together today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you, Jim. Thank you, Azam. That was an absolutely phenomenal conversation all the way around. I want to make sure that I also congratulate Daniel and Mike, because I know Azam and Jim, you've been working with the two of them, and to have this kind of story to share and really look at how we take the controls. And I love the point that Jeffrey made is so important, you know, that how you're caring for the taking care of the company and the objectives and everything that you have set out as your mission with the organization. And then also obviously your teams and enabling them to be as successful as possible. And a huge thank you, of course, to all of our advisor panelists, and also Nelson. So one thing about Jim and Azam that we didn't say yet is that they were featured in the Chief Executive magazine in April. And that is obviously due to everyone I just mentioned and what a phenomenal job you've done. But also Nelson is in the background and he's making sure these things happen. And with NextGen Benefits and the whole group that look to Nelson as a leader in this space, making sure that these kinds of breakthroughs are recognized is something that Nelson is just absolutely phenomenal in. And I know we all feel grateful for that in the platform he creates and this space of being able to go through really important issues like this. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do now is we have our full collaborative discussion. Now, in the chat, you're going to see a link that you can use to go over to that. It's also in your registration link that you were given. There's a link there, but it's in the chat as well. And if you can please join us there. I have the questions that I've already been sent. So we've got lots of great questions already to start with. And I'm going to come to you to be able to ask those questions. And we'll take more. Obviously, we're just going to have a great open conversation. And then we're going to have our cocktail time at 5 o'clock as well. So right now, we're going to transition over to that other link. So if everyone can do that, it means that everybody will come up here and we're going to open the conversation up. We're going to look at what some of the really tough issues are and what we're working through, and ask everyone here the questions we want to have answered. So click on the link and we'll meet you over there in just a minute.